We continue to try and test the new adaptation of Ruby Sapphire. I have the deck profile linked in the description. It should be public by now. I usually only make it private for members for the first 24 to 48 hours. That being said, if you do want exclusive deck profiles and stuff, you can opt to join the YouTube channel for $2.99 a month. Again, you don't have to. Everything is made public eventually. But in this matchup here, we are going second against Emerald Steel. The opponent, seeing our hand with that Diablo, sees that we mulliganed horribly there. I opted to keep a big Sisu, but I didn't draw any of my ice blocks, popsicles, none of my 2-drops, and no brawl. And this is going to put me really behind the 8-ball. Despite drawing that Sisu Daring Visitor for turn, that Diablo is going to run over me if I don't see my removal. Basically, all you need is an ice block or a brawl, right? And the ice block with the Sisu will take out the Diablo here. We do eventually draw Popsicle, but we're unfortunately just a little too slow, and every draw with that Diablo up gives them the extra draws, as you can see here. So in this scenario, we're not necessarily in that bad of a position, because if we can opt to get the ice block on field, we're going to be able to take out that Diablo and slow down the opponent. And I've talked about this before. All we need to do is get that shift Sisu down and we're good to go. Unfortunately, I do have to just start playing some stuff, and I opt to just play this Sisu so I can get rid of some of the questing power in that Ursula. They opt to hardcast, or sorry, they sing the Let the Storm Rage On with the Diablo. And at this point, because the opponent has saw my hand and they know we're kind of in a really rough spot, they're just going to opt to go higher on the curve now in order to play around that Sisu that they know I have in my hand and that I want to shift. So they're going to play some of their higher end cards like the Robin Hood and such, you know, which is still susceptible to Medusa, but it's going to be too little too late at this point. Now, because they didn't expect the Goofy, we are able to take out the Bucky that they quest with there and gain 2 lore. So again, keeping up with some of the lore gain, but just not being able to play anything until like basically turn 4 just put me too far behind. This matchup really isn't that bad though, guys, in my opinion, but this is an instance of what can happen when you play red-blue. Like, because you play a lot of top end, you can run into this situation. So I think the play really is just, if you don't have any 1 or 2 cost cards in hand, you really do need to mulligan like super aggressively. Like, I shouldn't have kept that 8-drop Sisu. I should have just gone in and, if anything, yeah, I should have just gone in and tried my best to fish into a 1-drop, because the opponent is just going to run away too far with it. Here you can see between the Robin Hood and the the Tinkerbell, sorry, the opponent knows. Like, they know, okay, that Sisu is not threatening me at all. After Brunoing back to hand, slowing down my tempo and forcing a discard off of it as well, like, they're just too far ahead. Dropping the Pegasus, another 3-strength character, they know exactly how to play around the Sisu. And without an ice block established, the Sisu engine does really suffer here. So you can kind of see some of the shortfalls of this deck against Emerald Steel. Like, we're still going to try to play it out and do the best we can. You know, the best we can do here is just crash into the Tinkerbell. We don't play Be Prepared, right? So this is an instance where playing a Be Prepared could be helpful. But with only a Huron left in hand, it's not going to do enough, because on 8 ink, the opponent's going to be able to drop yet another threat, and they're just basically threatening game at this point. So on the draw, with a terrible hand, you can see that it's still a very tough matchup, and this is why Emerald Steel is still one of the best decks in the game. You know, if we would have had a better opening hand, we could have combat the start of the opponent a little bit better. Now, I actually get the same opponent right away because I jump right back into a match, and this time I'm on the play, and I have 1-drops. I have the Popsicle, I have the Ice Block, and I have the Brawl. So maybe this is a good indication of like how a best of 2 would go. We start off by inking the Grammatala, so I'm still on those. Again, I've talked about why they might be able to be cut, but we play a Popsicle and pass turn. The opponent knows that we're on, you know, or what we're on, not a very standard version of Ruby Sapphire, so they're inking their Ursula Deceivers now. So this is the downside of a game 2, is that your opponent likely knows how to adapt to your gameplay when they're a good player, and you saw how in game 1 the opponent really played around the Sisu shift there. They knew exactly what they were doing. They had their game plan fully planned out, and they executed it perfectly to take that win. So the Flynn Rider here drops, and you're going to see just how dominant this thing can be. The opponent, remember, didn't see any of this because I didn't get into any of my early game, right? I only had like 4 costs and higher cards basically. So this Flynn Rider with the Lumiere, and I talked about this in the deck profile, is really going to be able to generate a lot of lore very quickly. And the opponent on Emerald Steel, you know, most of their stuff caps out at 3 strength, so they're not going to really have a direct answer to this Flynn Rider to out the ability, except if they use a song like a Strength, a Zeus, or a Let the Storm Rage On to out it. So I'm thinking like, yeah, it's safe to quest here, and I'm fine discarding an Ice Block, because as long as I keep this Hiram in hand, I'm fine. So you can see me here hopefully not playing into a Sudden Chill and a Floodborn character, because they can sing Sudden Chill and then use a Floodborn character to make me discard the final 2 cards in my hand. But you can see they are forced to let the Storm Rage on in order to out the Flynn Rider, because it would just get me to 11, and then I'd quest for 2, right? And it's just like the lore would just get away from them. But they opt not to play a character, so I'm able to ink that Popsicle, drop the Hiram, and now with the Hiram online, the Hiram will outdraw their discard, right? And my hand is not the best right now, but if I can keep inking, I will be okay. They drop a Robin Hood. I discard the Sisu because, again, and at this moment, I can live with the discards. The Ice Block in this matchup isn't as valuable because, like I said, all their stuff is already low strength, and the opponent kind of knows that it's over, and they end up conceding this one to us. So I don't know what was up with Pixelborn, but it was giving me an abnormal amount of going first matches, so unfortunately this is what I have to show you. I would like to show you more going second, but unfortunately I do not have the time to just keep grinding matches. But I did show you a going second match where unfortunately I lost, but I swear this deck can play going second in theory. Regardless, here you can see us going up against an Amber Ruby deck, and I'm just like wondering, I wonder if it's the deck that I showcased or not. So spoiler alert, it is, which is kind of cool to see, or at least I think it is. But yeah, on the play, when you start off with like a turn 1 and turn 2 play like this, like the deck is extremely strong. And against Amber Ruby in particular, if I know this deck, because obviously I kind of played it, I know that a lot of their early game is very weak characters. So as soon as I drop my Sisu Emboldened Warrior, like this thing is just going to generate so much lore for me through the Flynn Rider. And unless they're on the Teeth and Ambitions, which again, another reason why you might want to adapt Teeth into the build that I posted, and you can see here the opponent was on the Simba, which is what I was playing when I was testing it. Without the Teeth and Ambitions, though, you're going to have a hard time outing this Flynn Rider until later on in the game, and at that point, it may have already generated me way too much lore. Unfortunately, the opponent does get a really nice synergistic play there, singing the Bare Necessities with the Simba to rip that Ice Block out of my hand, because that Ice Block combined with the Sisu would have done really nice work for me, and I was planning to play it next turn with the Lumiere and the Ice Block itself, so maybe in hindsight, I should have played the Lumiere and the Ice Block instead of the Sisu, but regardless, you can see here, the Flynn Rider is able to put in a lot of work there, getting me 3 lore right off the bat. And the Sisu, I could opt to crash it into the Simba. I'm not really sure why I didn't, because I guess, yeah, that makes sense. Never mind. Of course I won't, because, yeah, they drop a Rapunzel, heal the beast, and then crash it into my Sisu to take it out after I've damaged the Simba. So it makes sense why I wouldn't crash there with the Sisu. So that was the right play. They do another Bare Necessities. I don't have anything else for them to rip, and then they're able to quest with beasts. So, it's nice that they were able to get that combo off, but they absolutely need a way to deal with my board because, yeah, this Flynn Rider is posing to be a bit of a problem. I'm thinking if I should ink the Goofy at this point and play out the Maui, just because it's a guaranteed high toughness character on board that can take out the Beast, and the Sisu can take out the Simba, which means that I can... I think inking the Maui is a mistake there, yeah. Because I need to clean up this opponent's board, because they can just essentially just go wider and wider, and it can be hard for me to out. But again, I could draw into the big Sisu that is shiftable right now. So yeah, I think this is the correct play. The Sisu will take out the Simba, and the Beast will take out the Beast. So keeping the high strength characters on board, leaving them with just a Rapunzel, and now I have the wide board. Now again, with this Amber Ruby deck, they can play out the Ariel, which can sing a Be Prepared, so that is another option. Like by turn 5, they can sing that Be Prepared, or brawl. Yep, they could brawl the Sisu, or the Flynn Rider away too. I forgot about that. So yeah, they are able to definitely take care of my board state a little bit, but thankfully we top deck an item, so a little lucky there. Otherwise, I could have really fallen behind. If the opponent had more draw engines and I just was relying on, I guess I wasn't that much in trouble because I have I have some ink and I have the Madame Medusa here, so I think I should be okay, especially since I'm the one who's progressing the lore instead of my opponent. But yeah, on this Mulan, they're going to be able to now drop the Julieta to heal and draw 1, but at this point the opponent's board state is just a little too slow. Like they needed to play more aggressively to out my threats, which is to be fair, they may not have had the brawl and stuff until later on in the game, but you can see how much work that Flynn Rider is putting in. You saw it against Emerald Steel, you see it here against other kind of mid-range tempo decks. Against aggro and mid-range, I'm telling you, the Flynn Rider does work, and now we just get free advantage off of the Stone Dragon here, and this thing is just going to ramp me to infinity. And at this point, I really don't think the opponent really has a way back, because I have the Hiram, I have another Hiram in hand. Yes, even if they have a Maui here, like I'll just drop this other Hiram. This Stone Dragon would have gotten me a +2 on ink, even if I have to Hiram it away. Yeah, so they have the Medusa here, which takes care of the Hiram. And now my board state looks kind of weak, but the opponent is also only on 2 cards right now. They basically need either the Snow White or the Hades in order to generate some advantage in addition to like the healing card draw. But yeah, the second Hiram here kind of kills them, unfortunately, because my advantage is just too great. So the Maui takes out the Julieta, and I'm playing another dragon, Stone Dragon item, which means I'm just going to be able to ramp from my discard even harder. And I'm already on 10 ink and they're on 7. So I'm not trying to overplay into a Be Prepared or anything here, because again, I know this deck and I know a Be Prepared was likely coming. So you saw me play a little passively there. And sure enough, on 7 ink, the opponent does indeed drop the Be Prepared, but then they concede right after, realizing they're probably just too far behind the 8 ball to catch up. And yeah, this deck put in the work. Alright, I got one more piece of footage for you guys, and I normally would not include this match because again, it's another going first match, it's against Amber Steel, and we know that Ruby Sapphire has a pretty good matchup into it. But I did say in my last gameplay video, which it was against Amber Steel, and we did kind of have a drawn out match, I did say that this deck seemed a little worse into it, but after playing this particular match, and the reason I really want to showcase this, is if you do end up playing the Stone Dragon item, like when they whole new world you and you discard some characters, that's just like free ramp for you, right, off of the Stone Dragon. So like when I was saying like it actually has a worse matchup into Amber Steel than the traditional Ruby Sapphire, that actually might not be the case, because while you don't necessarily need to aggressively ink with Fishbone Quill, and then if they whole new world you, you're like, great, I was inking with Fishbone Quill. It's like, sure, discard my characters or take out my characters, and I just get the free ink from the Stone Guardian, and I'm able to play my threats instead of having to ink them, and then I also just kind of refresh my hand when you whole new world me anyways. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that I realized that in the second matchup against Amber Steel Song, which is what you see on screen here. No 1-drop for us, and the opponent clearly drew a Cinderella for turn, but I opted to take it out with the Brawl there because I didn't want exactly what happened here to happen, where if they're able to sing that Let the Storm Rage on, that is really bad. So I'm happy to have brawled that and just slow them down a little bit. But in this instance, we're going to go ahead and drop the item, keeping both of our Hirams in hand. And if the opponent opts to whole new world us, that could put us in a little bit of an awkward situation, but they're still a little ways away from that. Obviously only on 3 ink and no singer established just yet. They're going to go ahead and ink a World's Greatest Criminal Mind, and pass turn we draw a good inkable in the Gravitala. And funny to not play a Hiram here, I guess I'm valuing the, yeah, okay, keep the Stone Dragon to continue to ink, and ink this Tamatoa. I am anticipating that they're going to whole new world me though, so I really should drop a Hiram, even if I don't use the ability right away, just put one on board so it doesn't get discarded, and I just have one in hand. But in steel matchups, or I shouldn't say in steel, in matchups where you know people need to whole new world, like the Hirams are a little bit less important, obviously, because you can likely just play off the top deck with some of your top end threats usually, because all it really takes is like one big top end threat against steel, and they usually will have a hard time outing it. Hence why you see this opponent on something like the World's Greatest Criminal Mind, which is a great adaptation for Amber decks. I think you even saw Zan, who's also a great content creator, by the way, guys, a top player. I like watching him and Bannable Harka. I think Zephyr kind of stopped posting videos for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I also liked watching him. Obviously, his videos were very funny. Anyways, back to the matchup here. We drop a Medusa to take out the Singer, leaving the opponent with a Kita, and the only reason you'd really play this bodyguard in Amber Steel is if you were playing the shift, so I imagine that's what's coming down here, and that's okay, I guess. Yes, it does weaken our Medusa, but we should be okay. And this kind of gives me another theory crafting idea. Maybe I need to make an Amber Ruby deck with like Kita and all of the like Ruby removal, like the Sisu, the geez, what do you call it? The what's on screen here, Madame Medusa, and the Brawls, right? So this is kind of cool synergy here. Everything is weakened. If I had an 8-drop Sisu though right now, like ink the Maleficent Dragon, drop an 8-drop Sisu, and just clear the board. So I think playing Kita is a little risky if you are in the Ruby matchup. Regardless though, we draw a Goofy, and this is like great for me. I'm just going to go ahead and probably double quest here, drop the Goofy, and take out the Cinderella, most likely. Oh, never mind. What am I saying? The Cinderella's not exerted. Yeah, throw it into the Kita, which is a risk. I do recognize that I am putting myself, you know, in a position where the opponent could Rapunzel draw 2. But I'm not necessarily too worried about that, which is kind of crazy to say. You can just see, though, how much advantage we were able to generate off of the Stone Dragon, not needing to ink from our hand, even though our hand is still very low. given the state of the game and the board state, like I'm playing into the scenario, right? Like I'm not trying to overcommit into card draw because I'm expecting a whole new world to come down. I should probably play a Hiram, but you know, it's yeah, there's a whole new world. It's neither here nor there because, like I said, in these matchups where the whole new world, like the Hiram is a little bit less important. Kind of crazy. The opponent inks the Heavy Storm item. I call it Heavy Storm. It's the item that destroys. Sorry, it's the song or action. It is a song too, though, that destroys all items. And so it's interesting to see them ink that. You know, it's a little bit of anti-synergy with their own lanterns here, but I guess for them it's not really worth it since it's only destroying one of my items. But like I said, this item is like doing a lot of work for me here. Like I mean, to be fair, they have 2 lanterns, so they're technically on 8 ink, which is ahead of me. And they're able to play out a pretty decent turn here after whole new worlding in establishing a big threat in the new Raya. And I misplay into this thing because I forgot that it had Challenger too. So that's unfortunate, but it does represent card draw for the opponent, which is quite interesting. But yeah, this double Maui is interesting, and we're probably gonna have to develop that at some point. But we have 3 characters in the discard, which off of the Stone Dragon just represents, you know, 3 more ink across a couple of extra turns. And you're going to see what I was explaining in the deck profile video come to fruition in this particular matchup, where the Stone Dragon will allow us to play multiple interactions in a turn, where it comes good later in the game. You can see, you know, the game state, 2 lore to my opponent's 6. Like, these matches can be a little bit grindy, but this is what a control deck is, right? You're controlling the match, so it's naturally going to be grindy. They play threats, you have to constantly react and out them, and this deck can do that from what I've seen. The Goofy is also, like I said, an amazing option to deal with a lot of what the opponents put up. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the Goofy in here, thinking that it would be safe, but I forgot the Raya had Challenger. Classic Yu-Gi-Oh player problem where we don't read the card. So yep, great. Keeping that stereotype going. We're going to play the Sisu to out the other ready Cinderella, and I'm like, great, my Goofy has no damage. That means their Raya on 3 strength won't be able to challenge into it and take it out, which means they don't get the card draw. But like I said, it has Challenger too, so yeah, and it has Resist too, so I don't think it even takes damage here, which is kind of crazy. So it's going to completely outplay my Goofy. They drop a Cinderella, or not, geez, Cinderella, Ariel, and get another Heavy Storm item to hand. Until I know all these cards, like, I'm just going to call them that because I'm still waiting on my physical product. For those of you that don't know, I picked up my case today, or my package today, that's supposed to have my Ursula's Return case in it on Saturday, and on June the 1st, and it had 4 boxes of Into the Inklands in it. So I had to contact the game store. As of me making this recording, I'll find out tomorrow what they say, and hopefully they can either give me my money back and I can order a case somewhere else, or they ship me the case and I can send them back these boxes or something, like, I don't know. Anyways, back to the matchup here. So this is a constant back and forth. This is normally what you see where people out each other's boards, but with this Raya having Resist 2, I'm going to need double Maui to take it out. So that's exactly what we do. Throw both of the Mauis into it, and again, the Stone Guardian, or I don't know why I keep calling it Guardian, the Stone Dragon comes good in allowing us to play those multiple interactions later on, which do play a role in us being able to out the opponent's big threat. We use a Popsicle to heal up one of the Mauis because, again, I anticipate the opponent might have a song that could probably aim to finish off my Maui here, and I would like to keep one on board if possible. They do drop a big Cinderella, which is fine in this case. A second ice block here would make that Cinderella easily Medusa-able. The opponent finally opts to use that Heavy Storm in taking out my 2 items there. And, you know, I'm not too worried about this board state. We do have a Brawl that can take care of the Ariel as well. They'd use this, let the Storm Rage on, okay, in order to out... not out, but draw a card, I guess, and put some extra damage on the Maui. We're going to go ahead and drop a Grammatala, use the undamaged Maui to take out the Ariel, because we're going to have to probably throw both of these Mauis into the opposing Cinderella anyways. And at this point, I'm putting the opponent on another whole new world anyways. So I'm playing out my hand, knowing full well that, you know, these higher toughness characters are going to be a struggle for them to out. So they're going to go ahead and Cinderella challenge, drop a Rapunzel to draw 3, and I'm like, okay, yep. Seems like it's getting away from me, right, guys? Like, that's a really, really strong play from the opponent. Thankfully, if the opponent can't out the second Maui, it should be able to take out that Cinderella. The Bare Necessities, my last card in hand, so kind of lucky on their part, but they're burning through their cards pretty quickly between inking and playing out that Bare Necessities. We top deck a Flynn Rider, and thankfully, again, the opponent didn't have the out to the second Maui, so we're able to out the opposing Cinderella, which now allows us to drop this Flynn Rider. And unless the opponent can drop a huge threat on board, and they do have a Cinderella, so that's pretty strong, they're not going to be able to mitigate the Flynn Rider, but in this case they do with the second Cinderella here. They quest with the Rapunzel, and, you know, I think they're worried about this Grammatala because they can't deal with it right away, and I'm questing for 4 this turn. I'm not going to quest with the Flynn Rider most likely, although I probably should, because I know that the opponent has to out the 2 questers at this point. I opt to play the Huron instead of inking it for the lore off the Grammatala, because I do have to potentially play around like getting Zeused on the Sisu, and then I don't know, somehow them taking out the Grammatala with like a Cinderella plus, I don't know, like a Smash, even though they're probably not on Smash or something. I don't know. I was playing around potential outs for the opponent here, but only on their final few cards. It's unlikely that they'd have all the removal needed in order to out our board. And so while this game may have looked like it was a bit of a struggle, 17 lore to 4 lore, we had pretty much control of the game the whole while. We were able to ramp up to 11 ink way faster than the opponent is, even though they're on 11 ink as well. But you saw like how much of a role that played getting to that ink early in order for us to like double Maui and things like that. They do whole new world, and at that point they know, like, I mean, at this point the game is over. There's nothing they can do, right? This is how the Ruby Sapphire decks do play out. So the top end of this deck is essentially the same, where once you get to this point in the game, unless your opponent is able to clutch out the win in the next few turns, there's going to be nothing they can do to stop you or slow you down. The Grammatala here acts as a closer as well, so you can argue, would you rather play this or the Lucky Dime? I think there is a lot of item hate going around, especially against the steel deck, so it makes Lucky Dime very risky. It does cost 7 to play, and then if they just out it with like an Aladdin or a Benja, or the song that the opponent played, it can be very rough. They give me the well played, and that they know that it's a GG, they end up resigning there. That's going to do it for this video. Let me know in the comment section if you do want to see more gameplay from this deck. Thank you again for watching. If you made it this far, Quantum is out.